Hi, and welcome back. Session 5. We're basically about halfway through, I guess. And today we are going to continue finishing up our yamas and heading into our niyamas. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Take a few breaths. Really conscious breaths like you're learning in the pranayama practices. And then we'll invoke the Guru. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. So just a reminder, this invocation is a recognition of the Guru within, in front of, and through time. So every time that you find yourself invoking this, to think of all of those pieces and parts and people and teachers. So today we're going to start with Aparigraha, which is Sutra 2.39. And it is the last of the yamas. And it is that transition point from that life that is recognizing what goes on outwardly to more inwardly. Though really it's all inward practice, isn't it? So aparigraha, as you can see, comes from two roots, pari and graha. So things, and then to grasp. And then, of course, since it's aparigraha, it's the non version of that. So non-grasping, non-possessiveness, so forth and so on. So this yama aids us in achieving a balanced relationship with these things that we call mine. So there's a yogic maxim that I wanted to share with you, and it says, all the things of the world are yours to use, but not to own. And basically, this is the essence of Aparigrahā, is this understanding and this enactment and this way of moving in the world. And whenever we become possessive, you may have noticed if there's something that you're really attached to, that you also somewhat become possessed, that you need to have it, you can't lose it, it's hard to give it up away to someone else. So you hold on to it anxiously and you grasp it and you grasp it and you grasp it. And aparigraha is the counteraction to that. It's a counteraction to our human tendency to hoard or greed things. And that could be a multitude of things. We're going to do a visualization in a moment so you can kind of get the full gamut of that. So when we make good use of our possessions that come to us, and when we enjoy them without being emotionally dependent on them, and they don't wield any power over us, then it doesn't lead to what the sutras tell us are false identities and false expectations. And so you can probably think of things in your life where you've had expectations or you've made yourself to be something that you're not. And it's because you're holding on to something or someone or some concept of yourself. Yeah. Another angle to this yama is take only what is necessary. So just think about situations in your life where maybe you take a little bit more than you really need. I know this happens especially when storms and things come, right? Things like that happen. So like just not taking advantage of a situation too could be taking more than we need. So, if someone's gracious with something, just, taking what you need. And if you don't need it, don't take it, right? So this sutra guides us to understand that grasping is usually a sign of fear. So you could think for a moment of something in your life that you hold on to very dearly, and if you ask yourself, what is my fear around this thing. Maybe it's not the fear of it, but maybe there's a fear associated with it. And when we have that fear in our life, we've forgotten our innate nature to be able to cultivate, to find what is needed, to have what we need in our lives. So we kind of forget that. It also is a sign of another yogic term, avidya, which means ignorance. And it propels us to look outside ourselves for what we crave versus looking inward and considering what it is that we have within and experiencing that with gratitude for that abundance that is already ours within. Okay? So part of your work this next bit of days between sessions is to really consider your attitude toward how things influence you. Okay? And even if you gave it all away, where would your mind be? Would they still be with those objects that you've given away, or have you released them completely with, again, no expectations whatsoever? And can you do this in a balanced and moderate way? So I'm going to get you to practice this right now in this moment. So I'm going to invite you to find your comfortable seat and close your eyes or soften your gaze. And as you settle in, just allowing the breath go as deep down in the body as you can. And as you settle into yourself, we're going to reflect on what truly is. So I want you to start by considering your home. Just considering your home for all that it truly is. Thoughts and wishes for changes come about, just acknowledge their presence, but at the same time come back, taking a moment of gratitude for what it is you do have in your home. And then moving that recognition of gratitude and acknowledgement to the work you do in the world. What are the aspects of that work that you are actually really grateful for? And then if you have a partner or a spouse, and if you're not, you could pick the person that gives you comfort and companionship, a close friend, or a family relative, and reflect on what it is about that relationship that brings you great gratitude. What is truly there? And then moving from the less tangible to the more tangible, consider your access to good food. Consider your access to health and the care of your health. And then moving back out to the more intangible but definitely felt fellowship with friends. What is it that you have in your friends, or a friend in particular? And then consider, what are the privileges that you hold in the world right now? Like, really, truly, what are the things that allow you to move in the way you want to move? To be the way you want to be? And then these may be tied with the privileges, moments of happiness. So you could consider one of the greatest moments of happiness, or the most recent moments of happiness, and how they bring you just what you need. All of these are your bounty. Now, reconsidering all of those things I just pointed out, still staying within through the calming breath, focused inward. Notice any apprehension you hold around any of those aspects of life or material things I just mentioned. So, for example, is there a fear of your health being taken away? Or your privilege? Or your home? Is there any uncertainty that you live with, that the well of well-being and maybe monetariness will run dry? And just be honest with yourself. And then we're going to do the last bit of this visualization. And now I'm going to ask you to completely shift from that last perspective to now a perspective where you imagine total bounty in your life, plentifulness. And I want you to cultivate images as I name the different aspects. So cultivate an image of the availability and the abundance of the food that you know makes you healthy, strong, happy. Imagine plentiful camaraderie with friends and family. Imagine the richness of what you do in the world and the service you provide. This could be richness to others and to yourself. Imagine the opportunities you are given and that they still are coming. Imagine the home in which you live, the aspects of it that are so beautiful and so comforting. And then finally, imagine your overall well-being. So staying inward, kind of holding that, you could open your eyes if you like and journal a bit, or stay inward. I'm just going to share a little story from a pretty famous novel that maybe some of you have read, autobiography of a yogi. And in this, there's a story that's centered around aparigraha, this concept. And so I wanted to share it with you. And it says, Yogananda writes of a beloved fawn he had for a pet. One day, on his way to town, he cautioned his young students not to feed the deer until his return. One boy disobeyed, and the deer fell deathly ill. Yogananda laid the pet lovingly on his lap and fervently prayed to God to allow it to live. After some time, the deer opened its eyes and stumbled up. A great uproar of thanks filled the air. But that night, Yogananda said he learned a deep lesson. In a dream, the deer came to him and pleaded, "You are holding me back. Please let me go." Yogananda understood that it was time for the deer to move forward to a new and better life, but because of his heartfelt attachment, it could not or would not go without his permission. Waking up, he told the boys that it was time for the deer to die. Quote, "All sorrow left me," Yogananda wrote. I realized anew that God wants his children to love everything as a part of him and not to feel delusively that death ends all. The man of unattachment, he who loves others as expressions of divinity, understands that at death, the dear ones have only returned for a breathing space of joy. So no matter your faith, there is a lesson here to be understood, a way to consider how when we grasp onto something, we may be preventing it from being what it needs to be next. It could be a relationship, it could be a person, it could be our own life. I used to work in a hospice, and it was the Zen hospice in San Francisco, and we would meditate with people as they were dying and so forth, and you could see the people that were able to, go into that space of starting to experience aparigraha, while others, it was a great challenge. There was a great desire to hold on to the world. So now we begin to transition from more inward to more outward. And what's interesting about having aparigraha right before this is aparigraha kind of asks us to weed out our mind, start to loosen and let go of things, according to Iyengar in his book, The Heart of Yoga. And he sees this as a possibility of what needs to happen in order to move into the first niyama, sauca. So sauca, just show you here, in the far upright, cleanliness is important, it says. So this is the Niyamas are how to treat the self. They are ways of lifestyle, ways we observe how we want to be in the world and can be in the world. And I want to tell you, in your sheets that you've been getting these affirming self-realizations. each session, and now you're going to transition into making your own based on the material. So you're going to kind of take in the work of the week, and you're going to consider how to transform it into a self-affirmation that is truest to you. And I have given some tips on how to do that in the sheets. So, sauca. So sauca is Sutra 2.40 and 41. Sorry, I said 40 and 41. And it is about purification. It is about cleanliness. And I have this quote from Iyengar as well, same book, Tree of Yoga. I've been reading that one again lately, you can tell. And he says, sauca is about enjoying the pleasures of the world and being free of disease. And he gives us an example of a physical practice. So if you sit up nice and tall in your chair, he simply says, by bending to the right, I know I've disappeared, I'll go down under here. So just bending gently over to the right. We always want to make sure we bend to the other side as well to create equalness in that cleanliness. So the crunching of the organs and what that does when we bend to the side to side. So he says, let's consider this first niyama as a sense of cleanliness both internally and externally. And this may include a number of techniques, like what I was just saying, just through the asana movements. It could be through mental practices. So, and in the heart of yoga, we also see a definition of this about cleanliness, and he defines it in two ways. The free functioning of bodily organs, so that's that physical part, and clarity of mind. So both of these major teachers are very aligned on the fact that this is a multi-level consideration here. So outwardly, the act of cleaning and being attentive to the body. Patanjali says, when we care for this, we allow ourselves to look more deeply at what the body is. And we allow ourselves to realize our attachment also to this body, I would say, personally. I know for me that when I went through cancer, that was when I really got an understanding of the attachment I had to this, or what one of my teachers calls this flesh suit that I wear. So that's kind of the outward. And sauca helps us break up that excessive fixation of the body, which Patanjali believes ultimately leads then to joyful awareness instead of a preoccupation with bodily related functions. So there's a balance point there. And so it could be something about eating. So considering when we eat, are we listening to our body fully? Not just our taste buds, but are we listening fully to what's happening in the rest of our body? How is it responding? How are we recognizing the effects of the food on our body while we eat it and afterwards? Another practice of cleanliness could be in asana. So asana, during twists and things like that, it squeezes the organs and nourishes the cells with fresh blood and so forth. So that's another one. And so that's kind of the outward cleansing. And then if we go inward, we can consider our mindscape, right? You can consider, does it feel cluttered? Are there cobwebs up in there? Does it feel a bit hazy? You know, and where might that be coming from? Or who provides you with mental impressions? So where do you get your mental impressions from? Who are the people that surround you? And what are they providing you? Good or otherwise. And finally, what are the outward impressions that you're taking in? What are the movies you watch? Do you ever interact with calming settings? What is the music you listen to? So those are all things that can cloud us and create a sense of, I don't want to say dirtiness, but definitely don't make things completely clean, right? So there's many subtle levels to sauca, right? So that's there's not a lot there. Sauca is such a subtle aspect of self that I'm really just going to invite you to really consider the things, the impressions especially, that come in and out. For myself, I don't think I really understood about that until I did a second 200-hour teacher training in just Sanskrit and mantra. And because you're working with a very subtle vibration, you become a little more sensitized to certain things. And I became to be very sensitized and starting to understand the impressions I was getting from the things, especially that I was seeing in movies or on the television, and how they, on a subtle, deeper level, really impacted me. So you could consider that the next time you sit to watch a movie or television. So we're going to close out our practice for today, or our discussion today, our Jnana Yoga session. So taking whatever seat you wish right now. Again, the gaze can lower, or you can close the eyes completely. See if you can use a few breaths to just kind of release the words for a moment. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you in our next session. Hope you have a wonderful day.